Bite into a stack sandwich made with Hero Bread, and the only thing you'll think is delicious. You won't think it has up to 19 grams of protein, 11 to 32 grams of fiber, or just 0 to 5 grams net carbs. But it does. Hero Bread. No compromises. Just loaves, buns, tortillas, bagels, and noodles packed with flavor. Right now, get 10% off at hero.co with code IHEART. That's HERO.co, code IHEART. All figures per serving of Hero Bread. See nutrition facts on hero.co.
Hey listeners, this is Peter and welcome back to the History Shorts. Today's episode is brought to you by the podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the world. Download Podcast Republic today, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. On June 17, 1862, a Union gunboat called the USS Mound City was fighting its way up the White River in Arkansas when a Confederate shell ruptured her steam drum. The explosion filled the ship with scalding steam. In an instant, more than 100 sailors were burned, many of them catastrophically. The vessel that came for them was a converted side-wheeled steamer, freshly fitted out as a floating hospital on one of her first missions. She took aboard the worst of the burned cases, 135 men, and carried them to care. Her name was the Red Rover. And here's the detail that history could not have scripted better. 2 months earlier, the Red Rover had been a Confederate ship herself. The Union gunboat that captured her was the Mound City. The first great mission of the U.S. Navy's first hospital ship was rescuing the crew of the ship that had captured her itself. Our history brief today covers some recent history news. A quick word from our sponsors.
This is Ashley Iaconetti from the Ben and Ashley I Almost Famous podcast. Ben, I've been reflecting a lot lately on how many big life moments our listeners have experienced with us.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
They've watched us go from dating shows to engagements, weddings, babies, buying homes. Every stage comes with new decisions.
The milestones are the fun part, but the planning is where things get real.
That's why Klarna stands out. Klarna gives people smarter tools to help manage everyday money with flexible ways to pay, cash back that builds automatically, everything in one place, and support that makes everyday decisions feel less overwhelming.
Since life moves so fast, the right tools can help you feel more confident. Download the Klarna app today or visit Klarna.com to learn more.
California resident loans made or arranged pursuant to a California finance law license, NMLS number 1353190. Klarna balance account required to be eligible for cashback points. Limitations, terms, and conditions apply.
This day in history. On July 27, 1953, the Korean Armistice Agreement was signed, bringing an end to 3 years of active fighting in the Korean War. While the agreement halted the conflict, no formal peace treaty was ever signed, meaning that North and South Korea remained technically at war to this day. On July 27, 1940, Bugs Bunny made his official debut in the animated short A Wild Hare. With his trademark question, "What's up, Doc?" Bugs became one of the most recognizable cartoon characters in all of history. Story of the day. To understand why the hospital ships mattered during the Civil War, we really have to understand the medical catastrophe that the Civil War itself became. Disease killed more soldiers than bullets. Typhoid, dysentery, malaria, measles, smallpox. By the war's end, roughly 2 of every 3 deaths came not from combat, but from illness, incubated in filthy camps and overwhelmed improvised hospitals. And when the battles did come, the system for handling the wounded barely deserved the word. There was no ambulance corps at the war's start. Wounded men lay on the battlefield for days sometimes. Sick sailors on the river gunboats were treated in makeshift sick bays and shuffled from place to place, deteriorating with every move. The concept of battlefield triage existed. It had been pioneered a half century earlier by Dominique Jean Larrey, Napoleon's brilliant surgeon, with his flying ambulances. But a concept is not a system. America in 1861 had the concept. It had nothing resembling the system. The war would force it to build one, however, and much of it would be built on water. The building began with civilians. The United States Sanitary Commission, a volunteer relief organization founded in June of 1861, and its Western counterpart, the Western Sanitary Commission, began chartering and converting steamboats into floating hospitals early in the war. In the spring of 1862, the Sanitary Commission's Hospital Transport Service evacuated thousands of wounded from the Virginia Peninsula, an operation run by a man whose name you know for an entirely different reason. Frederick Law Olmsted, the designer of Central Park, spent 1862 organizing hospital ships. That same summer, on the other side of the war, an army surgeon named Jonathan Letterman began constructing the tiered evacuation system: dressing station, field hospital, general hospital. That remains the skeleton of military trauma care to this day. The hospital ships were the floating link in that chain. And in the West, on the Mississippi, the chain got its flagship. The Red Rover had been built in 1859 as a civilian river steamer, purchased by the Confederacy in 1861 and damaged and abandoned at the Battle of Island Number 10 in the spring of 1862, where the Union gunboat Mound City took her as a prize. What happened next was quite remarkable. Rather than converting her into another gunboat, the Western Sanitary Commission oversaw her transformation at St. Louis and Cairo, Illinois, into something no American Navy had ever possessed: a purpose built floating hospital. A contemporary description survives, and it reads like a fantasy of 19th century medicine. She had a dedicated operating room, bathrooms, and laundry facilities, two separate kitchens, one for the patients and one for the crew, gauze blinds on the windows to keep engine siders and smoke away from the sick, nine water closets, an elevator to move patients between decks, and in her hold, 300 tons of ice, used to fight the fevers that were killing more men than the Confederacy was itself. Flag Officer Charles H. Davis, commanding the river flotilla, wrote that no one who had not witnessed it could comprehend the suffering of the sick on the crowded gunboats, and that the arrival of the Red Rover would put a stop to all of that. Sailors on the river called her a floating palace. She was something more important than that, however. She was proof that the chaos could be organized. On December 26, 1862, the Red Rover was formally commissioned into the United States Navy, its first hospital ship. And 2 days before that, on Christmas Eve, something else historic had come aboard: three Catholic nuns, Sister Veronica, Sister Adela, and Sister Callista, of the Sisters of the Holy Cross, transferred from the Army Hospital at Mound City, Illinois, to serve as nurses on the ship. They were the first women ever to serve aboard a United States naval vessel, and at $2 a day, the Navy's first paid female employees. They had no formal training. There were no nursing schools in America. One sister wrote that they were not prepared as nurses, but their hearts made their hands willing. The work was not safe. Two shots struck the Red Rover's hospital area during an expedition up the White River in January of 1863. On another occasion, a bullet passed directly through Sister Veronica's veil. But they all stayed. Two of the sisters served until the day the ship was decommissioned. And alongside them worked another group of women whose place in history is now only being recognized: formerly enslaved women, listed in the ship's logs as contraband of war, served as nurses aboard the Red Rover: Alice Kennedy, Sarah Kinno, Ellen Campbell, Betsy Young, and Ann Bradford Stokes. Stokes came aboard in January of 1863 and served 18 months. Decades later, she successfully claimed a military pension based on her own naval service, making a woman born into slavery the first American woman ever awarded a pension for her own military service. Aboard one riverboat in the middle of the Civil War, the future of the Navy Nurse Corps was quietly being founded by nuns and by freedwomen together. The Red Rover served through the great campaigns of the Western Rivers, evacuating the sick and wounded of the Vicksburg siege, ferrying patients to shore hospitals in Memphis, supplying the gunboats with medicine, ice, and fresh meat. She treated Union and Confederate patients alike. By the time she was decommissioned in November of 1865, she had admitted more than 2,400 patients, and her fleet surgeon could plausibly claim there was less sickness in the Mississippi Squadron than in the healthiest population on Earth. She was sold at public auction 2 weeks later for scrap value, like any used boat. But what she proved did not go for auction. The chain the Civil War built, evacuate fast, stabilize early, move the patient through tiers of increasingly capable care, is the chain that runs today from battlefield medical evacuation helicopters to the great white hospital ships Mercy and Comfort. The Navy Nurse Corps, founded in 1908, traces its lineage directly to the women of the Red Rover. The History Brief. Today on some history news, we're talking about a machine so enormous that it almost doesn't seem real. It weighs 1.2 million pounds. It's longer than 2 basketball courts. And when it's under full steam, you can hear it from miles away. Meet Union Pacific's Big Boy number 4014, the largest operating steam locomotive in the world. Big Boy number 4014 is once again touring the United States, giving thousands of people a chance to witness one of the greatest engineering achievements of the steam age in person. Everywhere it stops, crowds gather along river road crossings, stations, and bridges just to catch a glimpse of the giant locomotive rolling by. Now, we need to understand why this train inspires so much excitement, and that's where we go back to World War II. Built in 1941 by the American Locomotive Company, Big Boy was designed for one purpose: hauling incredibly heavy freight over the steep mountains between Utah and Wyoming. These locomotives pulled trains loaded with troops, military equipment, raw materials, and supplies at a time when America's railroads were essential to the Allied war effort. Only 25 big boys were ever built. They were absolutely massive. Each locomotive stretches 133 feet from front to back and weighs, as I mentioned, roughly 1.2 million pounds when paired with its tender. They produced around 7,000 horsepower, making them among the most powerful steam locomotives ever constructed. But by the late 1950s, the age of steam was ending. Diesel locomotives were cheaper to operate, required fewer crew members, and demanded far less maintenance. The big boys were retired, and most ended up as museum pieces. For decades, number 4014 sat quietly on display in California. Then something extraordinary happened. In 2013, Union Pacific reacquired the locomotive and launched one of the most ambitious railroad restoration projects in modern history. After years of painstaking work, the locomotive returned to operation in 2019, becoming the only operational big boy remaining anywhere in the world. Today, it does not haul freight. Instead, it serves as a rolling museum. Every tour draws enormous crowds: families, railroad enthusiasts, photographers, and people who simply want to experience what America sounded like before diesel engines and electronic motors took over. Makes me think whether Americans one day will want to hear what cars once sounded like before they all became electric vehicles. Anyway, that's what makes Big Boy so special. It's not the train, it's a living piece of history. Unlike a locomotive sitting behind museum ropes, this one actually breathes. It hisses and it whistles. Its enormous driving wheels still turn under their own power, just as they did more than 80 years ago. In an age of smartphones, electric cars, and high speed rail, Big Boy reminds us of a time when steam powered the American economy. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and helping make this little show such a mighty success. If you are enjoying this show and would like to help with its production, you can always donate a few dollars at buymeacoffee.com or become a Patreon member to enjoy these episodes ad free. Both of those links can be found on our website at www.historyshortspodcast.com or become a Patreon member to enjoy these episodes ad free. Both of those links can be found on our website at www.historyshortspodcast.com. Also, don't forget to check out our YouTube channel where we have different videos and series that are not part of this main feed. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all again tomorrow.